Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. And for all of the business entrepreneurs out there, we help you sell your vision. Our show today is Authentic Achievements, and our topic is Steps to Achieve Your Own Authentic Achievement. With me is the star of our show. She knows all there is to know about authentic achievement. She has her own platform under the same name. She is a world-class coach. She is a mentor. She is an author, and she is someone who has given a TEDx speech to encourage others to step forward. Let's welcome, joining us live from London, Kim Adele Randall. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Much better now than this morning when I had no voice at all. That I was just going to croak my way through our steps to authentic achievements, but thank the Lord it came back.
Well, thank goodness for that. And, you know, I know this about you, and people who follow you know this. You are not someone who gives up. You have this tenacity. You will not be held down no matter what's thrown at you. And you have been able to take your own adversity and turn it into your own authentic achievements. So tell us about your work as a coach.
Yeah, so I've been really lucky. So since having my little girl, she's nearly 7, I moved from doing the big corporate roles and retrained to coach people. And I've been on my own journey, as you know, and I've shared that, of overcoming my own inner critic, dealing with a number of life plot twists that it sent me, which allowed me to build my resilience muscle. And now I have the real joy of being able to share that with other people. So a large part of what I do is business turnaround. So helping businesses get ready for investment, getting them to that scalability and the breaking through the next barrier of their multi-million dollar business. But I often find a large part of it comes down to who we are as individuals, as well as how we are in our business. And so there's the real crossover between helping people get where they need to be for themselves to enable them to get their business where they want their business to be. And it's a real privilege to be able to be part of that journey.
And you have definitely taken what you've learned and helped coach other people that they can have whatever authentic journey they want to have. What does our mindset do to keep us or prevent us from getting us to where we want to go?
We are our absolute own worst critic. So we have our subconscious brain is the happiest helper we're ever going to have, but it is significantly flawed. It doesn't understand the difference between help and harm. And so whatever we're thinking about, whatever we're focusing on, it tries to bring more of it. And one of the number one things that I changed for myself and that I've helped clients change is very often we know what we don't want. We're crystal clear on what we don't want. And that's the language that we're using internally to tell ourselves, which means that actually we're going to get more of it because our subconscious brain thinks it's what we want. So we really have to get crystal clear on what it is we do want and focus all of our time and all of our language on the heading to where we want to go. And thinking about whether or not our goals are set in the positive of what we want to achieve or the negative of how we move away from where we are right now. And just those subtle shifts, just making those subtle changes and catching ourselves in the moment when we do use the wrong language can be such a game changer. It certainly has been for me, and has been for a lot of my clients, where challenging them on is that what you really want, or is that just what you don't want? Often we'll say, I don't want to be unfit. I don't want to be, and actually changing that to, okay, so what's the flip of that? What specifically, what do you want? And get really crystal clear on that. Really understand. Imagine that your brain is like a sat nav, and the first thing you have to do with a sat nav is tell it where you're going. So we really need to know where it is that we're going. And then the second thing you have to do with the sat nav is tell it where you are. So you have to be really honest with where you are currently against that goal, so that you can start to make the steps. The sat nav can start to create the journey to take you to the destination of your choice.
Absolutely. Great points there. A question I have for you is, I've heard from people, well, I have an illness, or I have this disability, or mentally, I just don't feel good about myself. And these are reasons that are legitimate about why I can't achieve what I want to achieve. So, what do you say to someone who actually can justify the fact that they have something serious going on and that's impacting their ability to succeed?
It's true. We can have lots of things that are going on, but we always have choice. And it's the one thing that we often forget that we've got. We can choose to use that as a reason to stay where we are. Or we can say, yes, I have this, but what I want to achieve is so important to me. And one of the things that for me was an interesting trick to change my mindset was think about what it is you do want to achieve, and then try looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, it's not important to me, and see how that lands. Because it didn't land very well for me, because actually it was really important to me. And that's often enough to then use it to say, I have this and, rather than I have this but. So that we can use it to say, yes, you might need to do things differently. If you're not feeling your greatest, if you've got an illness, if you've got things that legitimately could keep you where you are, they could. But how many people have got them as well and still go on to achieve the things that you'd like to achieve? And that's because they don't use it as a reason to stay where they are. They say, okay, I have got this, but I still absolutely want to achieve that. So what steps can I take? What things are in my gift? Who can I invite in to help me on the bits that I can't do? Because maybe I'm going to have to achieve it in a slightly different way to take into account what's going on in my world. I remember, and I think the power of visualization is huge. I remember it was 5 years ago now, and I thought I'd got a bit of a cold, and I'm notoriously bad thinking I've just only got a little bit of a cold, and probably it might be something significantly worse. And I remember I was working really hard at the time. We were going through an audit with the organisation I was working with, and they kept saying to me, Kim, you're really ill. And I said, don't be silly. I've just got a little bit of a cold, and I'm getting older, and I'm a single mum, and things just take a bit more of a toll. And I'd gone on about this for quite a while. And then I ended up in intensive care with double lung pneumonia, and had to message them to go, I won't be in tomorrow. Turns out my little cold isn't quite such a cold that I thought it was. And I remember the doctor coming to see me at the time, and I said, tell me what I need to do to get out of here. And he went, madam, I don't think you understand. We're not even certain you are getting out of here. And I remember looking at him and saying, no, you don't understand. I have a little girl at home who's not quite 2, and she's never done more than one night away from me. And I will get home to her. And you'll let me. So you will tell me what I need to do, and I'll do whatever it takes. But I will get home to my little girl. And all I did was visualize me being the one that opened the door to nursery to pick her up. I thought about it constantly, all I thought about. And I was really lucky. 3 days later, they let me out. And the doctor said, I saw your x-rays. I do not understand how you got your lungs to go from what they were to what they are now to enable us to go home. And I said, I don't know either. All I focused on was exactly what I wanted. I could picture her face when it was me that picked her up instead of my mum. And it allowed me to achieve something that I would have thought was impossible.
It's an incredible story. And you just had that determination. It was a cause greater than you. It was for someone else. And what I'm wondering from what you shared is, do you think that very strong people who maybe innately or they trained themselves, do you think that they are given more challenging situations because they can handle them?
Oh, such a great question, Dr. Jacqueline. I'm a massive believer that we're only given the challenges that we can survive. Because have you ever looked at a friend and gone, oh my goodness, how are they coping with that? And you've thought, I would never be able to cope in that situation. And yet when you talk to them, they think exactly the same about what life's thrown at you. And therefore, I think we're given different things because they're the things that we have within us, as long as we dig deep enough to find it. You know, I've gone through so many things that at the time I wasn't certain I knew how to navigate, didn't know how to get through. I think I've shared before on the show, being so melodramatic at one point that I laid on the floor and didn't know how to breathe, which of course I knew how to breathe, but I was so disconnected in that moment and didn't know how to deal with what life was throwing me at that point. And again, I think sometimes it's finding that thing that's bigger, the thing that scares you more. So the thing that scared me more in that moment was the fact that my little girl cried, and I was like, she needs me. She doesn't need me to be laid on the floor melting into the carpet because like this problem is bigger. She needs me to be here for her, and she needs me to be here for as long as I can be. And so it gave me the strength to get up and find a different coping mechanism and find a way through. And before I knew it, I'd got through the problem, and actually I'd learned something new, and I was able to pass that on to help other people get through it. So I think sometimes it is finding that thing that's bigger than you, and then trusting that actually, as long as you keep digging deep, as long as you look at what step can I take, even if it seems hugely insignificant, if you can find a little step that you could take and you just keep taking it, the next step comes into view. And before you know it, you've got through whatever it was that at the time you didn't think you were able to.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm smiling back here because I'm thinking I completely agree with everything you're saying. What do you think about the fact, because someone said this to me recently, we're going down this great path, everything seems to be going our way, and all of a sudden this obstacle, it could be a person, is inserted into our life, and things are now not going the way that we want them to go, and we're mad at the person, we're mad at the timing, but maybe it was all preordained. Maybe it was supposed to be this way to teach us a lesson. Do you believe in that?
I do. I'm a big believer that it's not our, everything happens for a reason, even if we can't see it at the time. And so I kind of look at it and go, okay, it's not what I expected. One of the things I changed from calling things obstacles or challenges was to turn them into plot twists, because every good book's got a good plot twist in it. And at the time, you don't know why we've changed direction, but it all makes sense at the end. And I think for me, that's been the one thing in life that I've learned, is it only really makes sense in the rearview mirror. It's only when you look back that you realize how it all fit together. And so I try now, when I'm faced with a situation, I'm like, well, this is not quite what I expected, to go, okay, what are you here to teach me? Because you're here as a gift. And the sooner I learn the lesson, the sooner I will be able to get back on the path that I'm supposed to be on. Because we're always exactly where we're supposed to be at exactly the right moment.
So when this plot twist shows up, we embrace it and say, hey, thank you. Glad that you're here, because now I can address this and move on. But other people might just fall to their knees and start crying or give up. And I find that as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly being challenged with new opportunities. And what I do with them is up to me. So I've shared this with you before as well, that I look at what is the solution? What are the solutions? What is the path? Instead of, oh, boo-hoo, woe is me. But I have to say, recently, I've had some real doozies thrown at me. They kind of caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, okay, I forgot. I have to go back to the training. But not everyone has worked on themselves. And not everyone has a coach or a mentor. And they have that voice in their head that just keeps going around and around. So what can we instill in them if they're not, some people are not even coachable, by the way.
Yeah, and actually, I read a fascinating book recently by Marshall Goldsmith, which is called Becoming Coachable. Because you're right, you first got to get yourself into that mindset where you can be coachable. I remember when I first started coaching, which was probably about 20 years ago, I used to do it as part of the graduate training schemes and things within big corporates. And I remember dealing with one particular senior leader who was like, oh, you're a coach, you clearly think you're better than everybody else. And I was like, that's not how coaching works. Coaches don't have to be better than you. If they were, then every top, we know every top politician, every top business person, every top actor, actress, athlete, they've all got a coach. If the coach were better than them, it's their name we'd know. The point of having a coach is to have somebody that you can soundboard off, that somebody can challenge you to dig deeper, to ask better questions, to look at the opposite perspective of where your inner voice is going. And our inner voice can be cruel. I've said things to myself that I would never even think about another human being. I certainly would never dream to say them, but I say them to myself all the time. And it's damaging. It holds us back. So, one of the things that first started me on the journey of going in and doing the inner work, and it's hard and it's ugly, and you have to look at the bits that you'd really rather not look at. You'd kind of like to brush under the carpet. And I spent 40 years brushing them under the carpet until in the end, there wasn't a lot of room between carpet and ceiling. It's getting a bit tight in there. So I needed to go back and clear that part out. And sometimes we can't, we might not be in a place yet where we've got somebody that we can go to who's going to be our coach, or is going to be our mentor, or is going to go and do those things. But I would really encourage people to find someone that they can talk to, find someone that they can actually share what's going on in their head, because sometimes just saying it out loud to another human being, you can spot for yourself how ludicrous it is, even though you've been telling yourself it for months and you've been believing it, because we're very plausible. How we talk to ourselves is very plausible. And again, back to what I said at the start of the show, because actually how we talk to ourselves is actually how we direct our sat-nav. The more we talk to ourselves in belittling language and telling ourselves we can't do it, the more things get thrown at us that will highlight that we can't. Whereas when we start to change it, and I think I shared on a previous show, one of the most powerful words in the English language, in my opinion, is the word yet. So I can't do this yet keeps the doors open for us to find a new way to achieve the goal in the future. And it's such a small change, but when you find yourself saying, I can't do this, or I'm not good at this, put the word yet on it and see how quickly you'll find new opportunities to get better.
And do you believe that when you have the inner skills, the tools, that you are self-sufficient and don't necessarily need a coach or mentor anymore? Or do you think it's an ongoing journey?
I think for me, it's an ongoing journey. I mean, I've still got coaches and mentors, and they change and they evolve over time, because I need something different. I need a different perspective. But I think, my grandparents gave me two amazing pieces of advice, which I've done my level best to live my life by. The first one is to make every day a school day. So in every day, to learn something. It could be to learn something brand new. It could be to learn not to do something the way that I did it, but to constantly try and be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday, so that I can be of more value. And the second thing that they taught me was to live each day as if it's my last, because one day I'll be right. And I guess by that, what they meant was, don't put off until tomorrow something that you can choose to do today, because it comes back to that choice. Everything that's happened in my life has been as a result of a choice. And that choice might not have been because you could go, well, you didn't choose to get pneumonia, Kim. No, but I chose how I wanted to deal with it. So everything comes down to still giving those choices. And therefore, I have control. In all moments, I have control in how I choose to respond to whatever is happening to me and around me. And that's really helped. But having constantly other people's perspective helps me, because sometimes we get lost in our thinking, we get lost in our viewpoint. And as they say, the best place to hide things is in plain sight. When we've been with something for too long, we can't see it anymore, because it's become part of the background, it's become part of the wallpaper. And so having a constant new external person that can point out those things that have become blind spots to us really helps us to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And do you think, as someone who has an incredible amount of experience, when you're looking at a new journey or a new project, are you already including plot twists? You don't know what they are, but are you including them in the plan?
Yeah. So I kind of try and run everything a little bit like I used to do business planning for organizations. Is you have your plan, and then you have your risks and your opportunities. So, and then within your business planning, you normally go, well, I'm going to factor in this amount of risk and I'm going to factor in this amount of opportunity. And then you come back every month and you go, did the risks manifest greater or lesser than we thought? Did the opportunities manifest greater or lesser than we thought? So I try and do the same thing, because it allows me to be less knocked on my off my feet when one of those risks turns up, because it might not be the one I thought of. Usually it isn't the one I thought of, if I'm honest. But I'm like, that's okay. I had contingency built into this. I knew that there was a chance of risk, and therefore it's not going to completely floor me. It's going to take me time to actually consider it, to look through it, to see what resources might I have at my disposal that will help me move forward. Maybe it's inviting somebody else in to help and get a different perspective. But I guess what it allowed me to do was stop being so flawed. And I'm very grateful that I spent 20 years doing transformational change. So you got really used to the fact that the only constant in life is change. And therefore, when change comes along, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can still be, really, you're going to do that to me now. But I know that the constant is the change. So when the change comes, it gives me the confidence that things are still going the way they're supposed to be going.
Yes, it's true. And it reminds me of athletic or sporting events. If you think about it, if you have two teams playing football, for example, I know it's soccer for you, but you're not going to be able to run down the field every single time and score. You have to anticipate what the defense is going to do. And even if you're on your own in your own journey, you don't know who the defense is or if there's offense. You just know that to get from point A to point B, you can visualize yourself getting there, but there has to be something that will disrupt the journey, because that's how life is. That plot twist is going to come up, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in the future.
It's so true. And a great analogy, because you do, I mean, you plan the best route that you can, but you don't know what plan they've got. So even if you look and you can see the team and you can go, well, I think I can get through here. You don't know where they're going to go. And I can't remember which book it was that I read, but they talked in it about the fact that, for really great athletes, they don't practice until they get it right. They practice until they cannot get it wrong, which means they have to keep practicing, because everybody else is growing and evolving. Everybody else is learning a new technique, a new tactic, and a new strategy. And so if we don't keep learning, we're going to find a heck of a lot more defense can hold us back than we find ways around it, because we've got to keep that constant learning. That what happens now, I'm a very different person today than I was even just a year ago or more than that. But that's because the world's evolving and the world's changing. So if I don't learn to evolve and grow with it, then I'm going to end up feeling stuck and find myself getting knocked back by the challenges that life throws me, because I'm not preparing myself to be more equipped to deal with them.
And when we think of the term authentic achievement, and that's your platform, Authentic Achievements, sometimes we dismiss even something that is integral to our growth, and we go, oh, that's so small, that's so insignificant. How would you define an authentic achievement?
A great question. So for me, an authentic achievement is when I've turned up and been myself, and I've lived by my values. And my values are to be passionately curious and to try and pass my thoughts, words, and deeds through. Is it kind? Is it honest? And does it add value? And so for me, I measure everything in, what did I deliver that in that moment on that day? Did I deliver that? Was I present? Is one of my other big ones. For too many years, I wasn't truly present in the moment. I was thinking about what came next. I was thinking about what next needed doing. And therefore, I stopped acknowledging what had been done, even if it was little, even if it was a tiny, tiny little thing. I'd still done something. Again, I'm a massive reader of books and I always struggle to remember where I learned which piece. But I remember in one of them saying, if you get up and make your bed every day, you've achieved something. Even if nothing else gets achieved for the rest of the day, you've started out by achieving something. So acknowledge yourself for that and keep moving forward, and you'll find more things to acknowledge yourself for. And I think sometimes we forget the little things. But it's all the little things that are often the ones that make the biggest difference. We often expect it to be a big change, for it to be something really significant. But when you pull back from it, you realize that actually it was something really small, something really seemingly insignificant. I remember the story, I think it's in Think and Grow Rich, where the guys with the gold mine actually walked away 3 foot away from gold. And lost millions because they wouldn't dig a further 3 foot. And it always kind of reminds me of that goes, maybe if I just keep going, then actually that's where I'm going to find that pot of gold. And I think you've got to find your pot of gold. The reason I went for authentic achievements is what I think is a success for me might not be successful for anybody else. And that's absolutely okay, because I'm living my life, not their life. So some days, when things were really bad, my goal for the day was to adult successfully and appropriately for 12 hours. And if I managed that, and I was really proud of that, because on some days that's as good as I can do. But as long as I don't make that my goal every day, then actually I can continue to show up and be myself.
Love it, love it, love it. To something you just said a little bit earlier, we can't know what's going to come or who's going to do what. It made me think of tennis. If you think about the game of tennis, were you ever a player?
Badly. I was so uncoordinated. It was dreadful. And my mum and brother, they laugh at this. They were quite good, and because I wasn't very good, I'd get about 30 seconds and I'd drop the ball, and then they'd be like, "You need to be ball girl for the next hour and a half," which I do patiently, and then I'd get the next 30 seconds. So I know the game well. Nobody would want me to go anywhere near a game.
We're not going to see you at any tournament anytime soon. No, me either. But with the game of tennis, if you think about it, if you watch the French Open or the US Open, the Australian, any of these, okay, the players ready, whether they're serving or they're receiving serve, and they're thinking about that shot that's coming to, they can't think in that moment about the next shot and the next shot. Maybe when they're walking back or they're, bouncing the ball, maybe then they're thinking, okay, I don't even know if they look up at the scoreboard, because what I've seen when it comes to tennis, some of these world-class athletes, they could be down 2 sets, or you think there's no way they're coming back, if it's a 5-set game, and they come back and they take it because they get out of their mind and they think about what's going on, what's in front of me right now.
It's so true. And you see that look of pure focus on their faces, don't you? They like squat down. It looks to me almost as if they get rid of everything else that surrounds them. And it reminds me of a story that I was told by Mark Woods. So he's a Paralympic gold medalist, and I've heard him talk a number of times. Great guy. And he was telling me about the time that they won silver. And he said, and he shows the video, you see the team, and as they get out, 2 of them are devastated that they got silver, and the other 2 were really quite happy. And he said in that moment he realized we'd got the wrong goal. But the following time, 4 years later, that when they were going back, they picked a team, and he was explaining to me how they pick teams, and based on your disability is your number of points, and you have to add them together. And he'd got one guy, he was kind of leading the team, and one of the players, one of the swimmers, he was one of the most handicapped, and he normally went first. And he said the challenge that he'd got with going first was he had to try and control his shaking, because in his disability, shaking was one of the things, and try and concentrate on he went second, and try and concentrate on when to jump in, because the other person was going to be there. So they moved him so he didn't have to be in that position. So he now went first rather than second. So he'd only got to focus on listening and jumping rather than timing and controlling his shaking. And then he came back and he was like, well, I've now got a problem. It's because they're putting their fastest swimmer up and I'm the slowest. So I'm finding it really, really hard. And I remember Mark saying, he's like, I was a bit stuck. He's like, what else do you want me to do? I can't put you anywhere else. You're going to have to be here. So he said, what I want you to imagine is where the ropes are. He said, imagine there's black curtains there and you can't see anything past the black curtains. So either side of you, solid black, and all you need to do is focus on getting to the other end. He said we did. They went on to win gold. And if you happen to watch the video, when they came out and then they're winning, one of the reporters went past and the guy starts talking about the black curtains. You could see nobody knew what they were talking about, but that's what he taught them to do, which was block out everything else, focus just on what's in front of you and be present to just that, because this is just a distraction. And that has often really come back to me in moments of challenge, which is stop being distracted and focus on the thing you can do, focus on what's in front, that is in your gift, that you can take that step, even if it seems really small.
Kim Adele, once again, learning something from you. The black curtains. I had not seen that. I have not seen that interview, but I'm going to keep that in mind, which I think dovetails nicely with what I want to talk about next. If you have an idea or a concept for something that you want to do and you go and ask enough people, you're going to get a lot of no's. People are not going to believe in what your mission is, your vision is, and that could derail you. So as a coach and also as a mentor, what do you think about getting opinions from other people about what you're doing? When's it appropriate and when should you avoid it?
I always like other people's opinion. I think it's about what you choose to do with it often. And you're right, I mean, I ran sales teams for years. We used to get people to monetize the no. So we say, like, you're gonna get no's, that's a given, right? Because not everyone's going to want what it is you've got to sell. So what you've got to work out is, how many no's do I need to get before I get a yes? And therefore, how do we change the thinking of the no? Because the no always feels like it's the end of the world and it's dreadful. I remember going on a course once where they taught, the whole course was designed around, how to not make how not to take the no personally. And I was like, we're just making it worse. We're just getting people to be terrified of this word. And I think instead it's kind of it's you're constantly having a pulse check on what people think, but then asking them better questions. Okay, why do you think that can't happen? Very often it'll be because nobody else has done it. Well, that's not good enough reason for it not to work, because somebody has to be the first to achieve everything. And it reminds me of Roger Bannister when he broke the 4-minute mile. 29 people went on to achieve a 4-minute mile within a month of him breaking it, because he proved it could be done.
And that proof in concept is really important, because that in and of itself could be the motivator for someone to attempt to do something.
Absolutely. When you look at the Wright brothers, when they built the first plane that got off the ground, at the same time there was somebody who had more resources, more money, more support, that had the goal to do it, but didn't believe it could be done. So even though if you looked at the circumstances, the chances of these farm guys with bikes actually beating this guy who'd got all the money and all the resources and all the engineers in the world working with him, you wouldn't have put your money on it being the Wright brothers, and yet they did it because they were willing to keep trying. And I think for me, I keep reminding myself of that, which is you want to be able to temper people's advice so that you're not being completely delusional. People are like, it really won't work. It's like, Kim, you're never going to be a tennis player. You're just never going to be a tennis player. There's no point keep asking. It's not going to get there. But you want to be able to ask those qualifying questions to just check if it's anything like it's never been done before, or anything that you can't get past, then they're not good reasons. If it's like, well, you've never done it before, and it's like, okay, so what do you think I need to have that I don't have today? Because then they'll be more specific with you, and it might be, well, you'd need to learn a different language. You need to be able to do this. Well, okay, they're things I could do. They're things I could put my mind to and achieve. But I think sometimes we don't. We hear the no and we stop asking any more questions. It's like when if we go for a job interview and we don't get the job, how often do we ring back and say, could I get some really specific feedback? I'd love to know what I could do differently so that I'm better equipped the next time the opportunity becomes available. Because we run away from the no. We don't want to dig into it, and therefore we don't learn from it.
Yes. And I want to go back to something that you said a little bit earlier about the medals. When you think about an authentic achievement, your mindset and your expectation is so important. So for the person who earned the silver, saying, wow, I actually won a silver medal. This is pretty cool. Or, oh, I'm such a loser because, I should have won the gold medal. And then the gold medalist saying, you know what, I won the medal, but my time wasn't as fast. There's all ways to spin it. So it's no longer an authentic achievement. And we do this to ourselves. We torture ourselves with this kind of mindset that is so unhealthy. So I love the idea of the black curtains, even in our brain, nothing's coming in. I'm right here.
It isn't. And I think they're the moments where when you have let everything else go. You've let everything else move away. One of the things that I always do when life gets a bit tough is cook. I love cooking. It's my passion, and I'll go and cook something that I know needs me to stand there and just gormlessly stir something for a long period. So a risotto or a French tart or something. Because I know in that moment I can't do anything else. I can't go anywhere else unless I want to ruin what it is that I'm cooking. And therefore it allows me to just block out the world for the 10 minutes that I'm doing it. But the fact that I'm creating something is really good for my soul. So I'm creating something, and it's my black curtains to the distraction, which just gives me some peace. And then whatever it is I'm facing doesn't seem as bad when I come back to it slightly later on. And maybe it helps. I've got something nice to eat at the same time.
I love that. I didn't know that you love to cook. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. In fact, one of the random things that I've ever done in my life, when I was UK head of sales, I went to our local pub and they turned around and they said, "Oh, we're closing it. We can't make it work." And I was like, "You can't close it. It's the only thing in the village." And so I bought it. And I went into work the next day and went, "I've bought a pub." And they were all laughing. They were like, "If it's anybody but you, we'd have gone, she's joking." And 4 weeks later, as well as still being UK head of sales for Sage, I was the chef. So I used to go home, I used to do my day at work, and then I used to drive to the pub and I used to chef, which I loved. And my boss, who was a CEO, he used to come on a Sunday for his Sunday lunch because he thought it was hilarious that one of his directors was making and serving his dinner. But it's always been a passion. It's something that I love. I've taught Scarlett. Scott knows how to make pasta from scratch and jam and bread and things, because it's like, and she loves it. It's a real moment to be present and be together. And also to teach her something that is going to help her when she gets older. I think it's something I remember. The joy I had when I learned to cook, and for me, it has always been that piece that kind of like brings you back. One of the things I love doing at Christmas, we've just done it recently, was Scarlett and I do a whole day of making homemade gifts for people. So making brownies and pâtés and jams and things, because it's we get the gift of creating it, and they get the gift we've created.
People must absolutely love coming over to see you. That's fantastic. And again, you can see the outcome of your efforts, plus you have that joint shared experience, which brings me to our next topic. What about when you're on a team and you and your teammates have a goal, and you know that you can't do the whole work yourself? That's why you're on a team. You each have your part, but maybe somebody else is better at their part than you are at yours, but yet you still contribute, but you don't feel as worthy.
Oh, it's so true. We look at those, don't we? And we go, "Oh yeah, we can't." And I always use the kind of, and I should never, my brother will kill me, I should never use football analogies because I'm not good at football. Nobody ever asked me the offside rule. But it's like with a football team, we think about the person who gets the most goals, but not everybody can be the striker. The team wouldn't work if everybody on it was the striker. They wouldn't win a game. There'd be nobody that's getting them down the pitch and defending the other end. So we've got to look at it and say, actually, how do I contribute? How does what I'm doing help move the team forward? And I'm going to use a story that Mark Woods shared again, because it came from his, when he was training all those years, when we had to relearn to walk again when he lost his leg to cancer. And he said, the team that he had included the guy who cleaned the swimming pool. He said, I used to make sure that he knew he was part of the team, because if that pool wasn't clean and if that pool wasn't ready for me to get in, I wouldn't be able to do my practice, which means I wouldn't have been able to get there. So he had a whole team around him, even though he was at one point, he was an individual player in the ultimate game. But it's that acknowledgement that actually your part might not be as big, but every part is important to the overall success, because when any one part of that is missed, I remember one of my biggest disasters very early on in my career, which I lovingly called the Valentine's Day Massacre, was when I managed to close all of the branches of a bank in Nottingham because we'd worked on this big project, my first ever project. I'd never been asked to do one before. I was going in as the cashiering expert. And I'd done my bit, and so had everybody else. We'd not thought about how they fit together. We'd not done it correctly as a team, which meant although all the individual parts worked, nobody had done the connector. And that was a real eye-opener for me moving forward, which is sometimes we dismiss certain roles, and yet they might be the connector that makes the whole thing work. And so we should value all of them equally. And we should give thanks to all of them equally. And again, we often only give thanks to the people that seemed to have the biggest impact, instead of talking about all those parts and how they pull together.
Oh my goodness. I have so many things I want to ask you. And I just happened to look at the time. I'm like, oh, she's got to go. She's got to go, because I love our conversations. They're so in depth and you just really bring a lot out of me. So thank you. And I'm loving this. I'm sorry you have to run, but we'll look forward to
I'm so sorry. And my apologies. It's school run time. So if not, my little boss will definitely be telling me off.
Oh, by the way, Kim Adele, I wanted to let you know, we are thrilled to have you as our expert correspondent from London. So as an expert correspondent and a TV and radio show host, how can you help people and what's the best way for them to reach you?
Oh, great questions. So the best way to reach me is to either email me directly. So you can see my email is on the screen, or visit at www.authenticachievements.com, or I'm on social media everywhere, either as Kim Adele Randall or Kim Adele 10. And I love to hear people's stories. So if you've got something you'd like to share, either on this show or on my platform, please do. Or if you're a leader or business owner that just wants to get unstuck and get to the next level, then get in touch and I know I can help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon there, and I'll see you again soon.
I'll see you soon. You take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So for all of you out there watching or listening, maybe you're on one of our audio platforms, I hope you're taking something away from this. We all have the ability to have authentic achievements, not just one, but many. It's about mindset, perseverance, and also minimizing those distractions. If you can imagine what Kim just described is those black curtains, just put up some boundaries. I teach people how to set boundaries. And I think it's important because if you look hard enough, you will, and maybe you don't even have to look that hard, you will absolutely find people who are very supportive, who want to help you get to where you want to go. And you'll find people who are not supportive for whatever reason. It's typically about them, and that's not your issue. So take the good and make your own authentic achievements in whatever that looks like. Reach out to a coach like Kim or to me or any number of the 6 million coaches who are out there to help you. And if you find that it would be valuable for you to be able to express yourself through a podcast, we'd be really happy to support you and your work. So thanks for being here. We're going to sign off for now. Our next show is coming up, and that will be The Wise Ones with Mr. Red O'Loughlin. So we look forward to seeing you there. Bye, everyone.